So The Road to Tender Hearts is my newest novel. So it is, yeah, it's a road trip book. It became a road trip book because what I was originally, I was starting to write about a man named PJ Holiday, who is named after my father, PJ Hartnett, which I did just to kind of give myself a little kick of delight. And I thought I would probably change it, but did not. Um, and so he is somewhat based on my dad, but he's also based on a man that I met many years ago who told me that he is so sensitive that his wife cuts up the newspaper every morning and removes things that would upset him about animals and children. And I thought that was like the most amazing detail that anyone had ever told me about themselves in the whole world. So I thought about it for years. And then I started to write about a man whose wife cut up the newspaper. But in my story, I was like, it'll be his ex wife that cuts up the newspaper. So his ex wife cuts up the newspaper. And um, what happens in the book is that, so I that's what I started writing about, the newspaper thing. And then I was like, well, what is he reading in the newspaper? So he's at his ex-wife's house. He goes to his ex-wife's house with her new boyfriend every morning, and has breakfast with them and reads the newspaper that the ex-wife has cut up. And he comes across the obituaries, and he can read the obituaries as long as there's no children in them. So again, that sort of acceptable death thing that I'm obsessed with. And so he he's reading the newspaper, and he sees his friend from high school, and he realizes that if his friend from high school is dead, then the woman that man married is single again, and he decides to drive across country to win her back. So it came, the way I write is like, it's sort of just, I have a one little idea and then I see where it takes me. So it became a road trip book at that point. I had gone on a few very formative road trips in my life. So I had some things to draw on personally. Mostly what I love about road trips is how random they are, especially like I went on a road trip in my 20s where we had to get to Seattle at some point from Massachusetts because we had to return the car that our friend had been in college with, but we didn't have to get there at any point, and we were college kids, so we could one sleep anywhere and didn't have any money, so we were camping across the country, so we could, there was no agenda. So we took our time and we would stop anywhere we wanted to stop. And so we saw the most random things people know about, like the Corn Palace and Wall Drug, and also just like the most random roadside stops. Like the Americana, I just love that kind of thing. And so I wanted some of those in the book. And so the book then became about PJ driving across country. But then I was also a new parent at the time, so I knew I kind of wanted to write about parenting in some way. And so I was writing what I thought was a separate story about children, and then I was also writing what I thought was another separate story about Pancakes, the cat who can predict death, who is based on Oscar, the cat who was a cat in Rhode Island who died in 2022, which is when I started writing this story. And he was a cat in a hospice, and he was a therapy cat for the people that worked in the hospice. And then they discovered that Oscar was going into the rooms and if Oscar was cuddling in the bed, then that person was going to die within a few hours. And so they started using Oscar to alert the families to come say goodbye to their loved ones. And so Oscar was beloved. It was like the nursing home had, articles written about him, and it was like nursing home cat predicts death, provides comfort at end. And so there was like this emphasis on how much comfort this cat was providing. But also, I think the more important thing to me is that the remaining people got to say goodbye. And so Oscar was really valuable. But so the first chapter of the book is you meet Pancakes, who's my version of Oscar, who is not embraced by the nursing home. He is like, he's a Grim Reaper, kick him out. He's creepy. So he gets kicked out. He ends up meeting PJ. So PJ brings along the cat, and then the children. Again, I didn't know that they were all the same story until one day it clicked that I could, if I used the right voice, that I could like do whatever I wanted, and that the cat gave me a lot of freedom to have the sort of really dark comedy that I wanted. Um, and then when I also realized that these all these characters could be tied together through the newspaper, because PJ's reading the newspaper, and so PJ's reading the newspaper, but it's cut up who's removed from the newspaper, the cat and the children. And so PJ doesn't know about this great niece and great nephew until tragedy strikes, and then he ends up as the surprise guardian of them. He already has this road trip planned, and he's like, well, children need a summer vacation, don't they? So he decides to take the kids with him, and then his adult daughter Sophie is worried that the children are in the custody of her dad. She does not think he's a responsible man. So she decides to go with them on the trip. So yeah, it ends up to be a full car, and yeah, chaos ensues.
Yeah, who were any of the favorite, personalities that kind of came to life in the car as you were driving, dialogue wise, or as you discovered them, more in depthly, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I love to write dialogue. I love to write the dialogue of children. All my books have children in them. The first book is written by a child, I mean, narrated by a child. And then the second book, Emma ends up teaching a class of fifth graders. And then this book, they are fourth graders. And so dialogue with kids, I feel like I'm always going to need kids, because I just love the things that they say and the reactions that they can have, um and the funny things that they can say. And I also love the dialogue between siblings, because you can be so mean to your sibling, but you understand, and the reader understands that there's an undercurrent of love in it. Like, I was at a book reading last night, and someone said to me, my favorite line in the book is when Ollie, the brother, says to the sister, like, stop doing that, or we're going to go to or you're going to go to a home for troubled girls, and I'm going to go to a loving home. And she's like, why wouldn't we go to the same home? He's like, because so it's they can just be so mean to each other, and you understand. I grew up with two brothers, so definitely that influenced a lot of my humor in general. And um but sibling dialogue is the most fun for me to write. I knew I wanted it to be a comedy, so I knew I wanted it to end with a wedding, which is not a spoiler at all. It's just like, there is a wedding, because you'll see. It's not there is no spoiler. But it does. I wanted it to end with a wedding, and that gave me a little bit of a container to shoot for, and that helps generally if I have some idea of the end. But that didn't really solve all my problems of like what else happens in the book. So I don't really plan that much. But I did figure out there's a couple, there's some big reveals at the end, and I figure those out before I get there. But not until I'm about, I would say, at least 80 pages into the book, maybe even 100. And then I figure things out. And then I continue to figure out things out and discover as I go. I am not a person that can plan out beforehand, because just all the magic happens for me when I'm in the zone and I'm having the light bulb moments. And so I don't plan at all.